If you had to guess which Jewish holiday is referred to as the holiday, Hechag, which would you guess? Anyone? So I heard someone say it. I recognize that the Jewish calendar does offer a significant clue with Sukkot beginning on Monday, but would you ever have guessed Sukkot? It certainly doesn't have the marquee appeal of Rosh Hashanah, nor does it have the market share of Yom Kippur. But what it lacks in acclaim, it makes up for in joy. We read in Deuteronomy, "V'samachta bechagecha," you shall rejoice in your festival, and you shall have nothing but joy. From our Torah, we glean that joy is not only an aspiration for Sukkot, but also a mandate. And the joy we experience during this festival, also called Zman Simchatenu, or the season of our joy, is meant to be a release, as Rabbi Reines said earlier, a release from the rigor of the Yamim Noraim, the 10 days of awe. Yet the work of the high holidays doesn't end with Sukkot. As some might argue, it actually intensifies. For many of us, the effort to feel real, unabashed joy is a tall order, to say the least. In our fast-paced, productivity-obsessed, tragedy-soaked world, joy can often feel frivolous, like an unnecessary luxury we can't afford. As such, we often refrain from leaning too far into joy, from embracing it too completely. Recent studies affirm this trend, indicating that Americans today are less joyful than they've been in years. In her audio series, The Power of Vulnerability, Dr. Brené Brown talks about this decrease of joy by way of example, one which demonstrates how we commonly respond to joy and process it. She says to her studio audience, "I'm going to walk you into a scene from a movie. Are you ready?" Okay. So imagine it is a beautiful, crisp winter's day during the holiday season. The camera focuses on a family piling into their car on their way to grandmother's house for dinner. We see mother and father buckle their children in, sealing their work with a kiss upon each child's forehead. As they take off down the road, Mom turns on the radio. Soon one of their favorite songs come on, and first Mom joins in, and then Dad, and then everyone in the car is singing. The camera pans in, and you can see a wash of unapologetic bliss on the face of every person in the car. Everyone is so happy. The camera then pans out, giving the audience a bird's eye view of the car traveling on the highway on this winter's eve. So what happens next? Anyone? In the studio, where Dr. Brown originally told this story, the answers spanned a very narrow gamut, ranging from car crash to oh no, to Big Mac truck. All were in agreement that nothing good would result from this beautiful, heartwarming scene. What is this reaction about? What accounts for every person in that studio audience feeling like this touching scene had to end in tragedy? Dr. Brown refers to this phenomenon as foreboding joy, or the worry that joy, especially in large, full-bodied measures, invites suffering and trauma. She explains, "We're afraid that the feeling of joy won't last or that it won't be enough. We've learned that giving into joy is at best setting ourselves up for disappointment, and at worst, inviting disaster. And we struggle with the worthiness issue. Do we deserve our joy given our inadequacies and imperfections? Joy, we learn, is deeply connected to feelings of fear, anxiety, and self-worth. And leaning into joy is so hard precisely because it feels so risky. As Dr. Brown concludes, I have never come across an emotion or affect that is as difficult to feel as joy. Joy is probably the most vulnerable feeling that we experience. As Jews, we understand this vulnerability intimately. Ours is a history, writes Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory, which has been shot through with tragedy. Therefore, he continues, joy is not the first word that naturally comes to mind when we think of the tear-stained pages of Jewish history. In the chronicles of Judaism, joy is fragile, it's precarious, and it's fleeting. And yet, as Jews, we also understand the value that joy brings into our lives. Joy sits firmly at the center of Jewish living. As we read in our Talmud, the Holy Spirit rests only on one who has a joyous heart. And in the Zohar, we are taught, God finds a joyful person so appealing that God can't refuse even a joyful sinner entering into God's presence. The truth is, as Jews, we live life knowing that joy and pain occupy two sides of the same coin. And as Rabbi Israel Salanter taught, to be a good Jew, one has to have every human quality and its opposite. Light and dark, good and bad, happy and sad. These dualities are a necessary part of what it means to be alive. And in so many ways, Judaism reminds us that they must coexist at all times and at every moment. When we break the glass at a wedding, for example, we pierce the joy of the day to remind us of the brokenness in the world all around us. But this explosive interlude doesn't take away from the celebration. In fact, moments later, we shout, Mazel Tov, as if to say, because there exists so much pain in the world, we are urged at this sacred moment to lean ever more deeply into our joy. Judaism emphasizes again and again that while joy doesn't cause pain, joy will always reside alongside pain. And this is a relationship we all must learn to navigate. We can't let the presence of pain overtake our ability to feel joy or undermine our claim to its rapture. It was Kierkegaard who said, it takes moral courage to grieve. It takes religious courage to rejoice. Joy demands courage. Joy requires bravery. And most importantly, joy necessitates vulnerability. As Dr. Brené Brown shares, when we lose our tolerance for vulnerability, joy becomes foreboding. Sukkot is inherently about building up our tolerance for vulnerability, and in turn, building up our tolerance for joy. Inside the sukkah, we are vulnerable. We're exposed, porous, and permeable. The sukkah is vulnerable too. The vulnerability we feel in the sukkah is meant to awaken us to our blessings, to open us up and amplify our awareness. During this upcoming Sukkot holiday, may those of us who struggle with joy but strive for it nonetheless seize the chance to embrace this vulnerability, both in and out of the sukkah. And may we recognize that the very notions that unsettle and excite us about the sukkah, the unpredictability, the uncertainty, the physical and emotional exposure, are the very same notions that unsettle and excite us when it comes to feeling joy. Joy carries with it profound risk, but joy also carries the potential for profound reward. Finally, it should be noted, when asked if there was one way to combat these feelings of foreboding joy, Dr. Brown's research did point to one answer: gratitude. The consistent practice of gratitude was the one reliable trait in those who do not experience foreboding joy. How fortunate we are that Sukkot, this season of our vulnerable joy, is also grounded in gratitude for the food on our tables, the roofs over our heads, and the company we keep. May our gratitude this Sukkot help us facilitate our joy and counter the feelings of fear and anxiety that often show up alongside it. May the simple words, "I'm thankful," or "I'm grateful," safeguard our impulse for joy and fend off the darkness that can at times overshadow it. And may our willingness to express appreciation for these sacred moments and for this sacred time pave the way for a joy that is neither foreboding nor menacing, but one that is rather robust and unburdened and free. May this be the joy in all of its bright and boundless exuberance, which lingers within us long after the sukkah is gone. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May it be so.